So I think I will start, and then Nabas join now will just catch up as we go. Tozan Bokoko Tozan. I would also encourage everyone who's joined in to send through any questions or understanding or whatever it is that you understand around what Ukufemba is, so that we could also have like a participatory style conversation where it's not just going to be me speaking at you. Tozan Bokoko. So when we speak about Ukufemba, what is it that we're speaking about when we speak about Ukufemba? Firstly, perhaps let's take it from rituals and amadlozi, the ancestral spirits that we as Sangomas get initiated into. So in initiation, we understand that there's a particular ancestry that is worked with, which is called UMndawo or Mzawe, which is the spirits that are associated with the water. So the Mzawe spirit, those who have initiated in Umzawe and have gone through that sect, there's a certain ritual that you learn as part of your initiation into Umdawe, which is a ritual which is called Ukufemba. So Ukufemba, basically what it means is that ngesinvu we would say that we are thanyela. So ukuthanyela is basically sweeping. So Ukufemba at first is a ritual which is done to, in its intention and in its purpose, is firstly to deal with us on a mind, body, spirit level, but also to work on with us on an energetic level and on an oral level. So maskuluma about an energetic level and an oral level. In Sinvu or in our African languages, we would say that we are speaking about moya wako nesitundi sako, moya wako leseriti sako. Those are the oral and energetic levels that we're speaking about, and the tears that Ukufemba then helps to clear up. It also then goes into going into the divine source, because some of our gifts also comes from the divine, and cleansing that up. So in understanding then that from our languages, we understand Uguti Ukufemba is a sweeping. Firstly, it means that as a ritual that is performed for any and everyone in its purpose and in its intention, it is a ritual that is meant to cleanse and to do spring cleaning. Like you could constantly clean your home every single day, but there will be a specific time where you do what we would call spring cleaning, where you would get those machines where you'd vacuum deep clean your carpets, deep clean your beds, wash out all the curtains, just take everything from where it is and clean it and leave it at a state of cleanliness. Spring cleaning layer is the cleaning of everything and the maintenance of everything. So Ukufemba is a ritual that is able to then do that very same sort of intention of spring cleaning. It means that it cleanses certain blockages, which, as I mentioned before, could be on a physical level, could be on emotive level, could be on a spiritual level, could be on an energetic level, and could be on an oral level. Oh, my body is like being so naughty, so I'm getting distracted. So that is essentially what Ukufemba is as a generic form of sebendo. It's no different than the same rituals which are important to do as a person, such as constantly getting cleansed at a river, going for an annual cleansing, maybe at the river, going to annually get fortified through certain incisions. It's no different as part of a holistic wellness approach, using then dipoleti kamuga from Bungoma Betu, coming from that which is then Umzawe specifically, because it is a gift Mzawe. So I'd like for just all of you to please interact in the comments and let me know, Guti, how is this landing? Is there an understanding that we're building around what Ukufemba is? Because what I'd like to do is to go in unpacking Ukufemba in as many of its intended and purposed uses as a modality of healing or as a ritual that is performed. Tozani Bokoko, Tozani to everybody who's joining, Toza. We are unpacking Ukufemba, and we are speaking around what it is. We had just touched upon what Ukufemba is, using our African languages and the understanding of Ukufemba being called Ukuthanyela, Hufiela, sweeping, and then using the a metaphor of understanding Ukufemba for a generic process or ritual that is done for any and everyone, as what would be taken in the same as a spring cleaning on an energetic level, on an oral level, on a physical level, on an emotive level, and also on a spiritual level and a mental level. Tozan Bokoko. So we also touched upon that Ukufemba is something that is a ritual that is performed by those who have initiated specifically in UMndawo. Tozani, I see there's a question from Princess Fabstar. Toza Gogo, is it possible to get Iyeza rather than going through the whole process of Ukufemba? Toza Gogo, whenever I try and impart knowledge, I always like to use allegory, or use metaphors, or use practical examples. So the practical example of taking Ukufemba as a holistic cleansing ritual, as one of spring cleaning, where you'd be deep cleaning your carpets, deep cleaning your bed and your whole entire home space, and making sure that all the nooks and crevices, every single part of the home is clean and also sanitized, is basically that there is nothing that you could do to sort of replace that sort of practical act, because Ukufemba, where umuti is the use of ethnomedicine, plant-based medicine, in order for that plant-based medicine, because of certain properties it has, certain physical properties and also certain spiritual properties, it is then able to cleanse when it's used to cleanse. It's able to then bring in light where it's supposed to bring in light. Where Ukufemba is a ritual that is specifically performed by a person. So Ukufemba is done by, let's perhaps go into that next part as to how is the Ukufemba ritual done. Ukufemba ritual, essentially what it is that mina as Gogo Khanyakude, if I am going to be the fembist, and then you will be the fembi, what happens is that you would come, and then we would do the preparations as we prepare. So usually the Femba ritual is done where it is inside in Ndumba, where you lay out a grass mat, you sit on the grass mat. There is then umtundu, which is the sacred basket where igono of the Mzawe stays. We then use that to patla and then call upon the ancestors. And then from that point, that Mzawe spirit that I have initiated in would come out, would be evoked in a trance. And when they come out in the trance, they would then say that I have been summoned here to come to do some spring cleaning firstly. And then they would also explain that we have also come to also scan and uncover some things which are also not then in common sight and cannot be seen within this dimension. And the importance of mentioning that it is done by idlozi, or an ancestral spirit through trance, is that our ancestors exist in this very same plane dimension as us, but they also exist in other dimensions which we are not able to tap into as humans, because we are bound here. That even then, even Muti is not able to tap into, because it is bound to this dimension. But the bringing of then that Ndawe ancestor, who both has the lived experience of this physical plane and has the lived experience of that spiritual plane, they are then able to come and do a holistic cleanse where certain matters, perhaps for example, because Ukufemba, as much as it's a holistic cleanse, Ukufemba is also basically going through a full set of like checkup, where it would be an MRI scan, x-rays, every single kind of test that can be done in order to pick up if there are any sort of pathologies or sort of previous generational curses, if we could put it like that, that come from the time of our ancestors, maybe even dating back as far as 150 years, where certain members of the family now do not have an understanding as to why is it in our family are we afflicted by a certain kind of generational sort of curse, where maybe the uncles will drink a lot, or there'll be abuse in the family, and there will be a large amount of unemployment. What that means is that there is a certain disconnect in their lineage, and when then the Mzawe ancestor comes, they're able to, much like when you do tests and there's something that is not well with you within the biomedicine space, when the tests come back, they'll be able to reveal with you, okay, here, this is what is wrong. So the ancestor is able to do that, whereas when you cleanse using Iyeza cannot give you feedback. It does not speak. Tozan. Okay. I'm trying to go back to all the questions. I just don't want to see lose my questions alabanye. Tozan Bogogo Nyabonga, if you're understanding. Zimbali says etymologically I understand it to mean ugutimula in terms of the original language, such as to clear the nostrils. Towards Zimbali, etymologically, if we looked at it from a linguistic perspective, because we in the Nguni language now have associated certain linguistic things, much as you're saying, is that it does have to do with the sneezing, because during the process, the shizingo, which is a small shoba for the Mzawe that is used to femba, the process is sniff, 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 sniff. And when a spirit then comes out, then there is a sort of an expectorant. There's loktemula wati, which is then having then donsad loyo moya, or the essence of whatever is lingering in that person's oral, energetic, mental, physical, spiritual space, and then being able to then manifest and evoke all of that in your body. Choza Gogo. Edzi Mutles says that if you were to explain how it's done without giving away too much to someone who doesn't know how or what the Ukufemba process is. Towaza Gogo, I went into a bit of detail around Ukufemba, so please just comment and let me know if you still are looking for more details on it. Uzinhle Zizi says, do we have different ways of performing Ukufemba? Towaza Gogo, thank you for that question. So Ukufemba ultimately is, there's a certain sort of governing principle around it. So there are different approaches to how you femba, because Ukufemba is something that is done by the Ndawe ancestor, or those with water ancestry. So Banzawe, in understanding that there are different also, subcultures within the Ndawe people in themselves, and how they then connect with their identity and their spiritual gifts is unique to their sort of subculture that they would have created. So for example, there are those who femba without only either before sunrise or after sunset, and that is just in terms of their particular subculture, the sort of protocols that they have. In that also, then you do not also eat when you're going to femba. You femba having fasted as well. That is one of the approaches. And another approach, you find that others do not femba outside of in the outdoors, whereas others would then say that they only then femba outdoors. And so there are different expressions to how the Femba is done, but ultimately the principle or the underlying intention or purpose of Ukufemba remains the same, which is the Mdawe ancestor coming out and evoking, being able to firstly come and spring clean and cleanse and sweep on a holistic level, to secondary do a full body checkup on all the different bodies of ours, our mind body, our spirit body, our energetic body, our oral body, all the different parts of us. It does a full test and scan to see if there are any things which are a call to attention. And through that scan, as they are sweeping and sniffing out all of that, they would then express if there are certain issues that are there. Ukufemba then also then, as part of its principle on a third level, is that to connect to, it's a form of mediumship, an embodied form of mediumship, where as opposed to me channeling the messages of the ancestors and paraphrasing in the way that it comes to me, your ancestor would then, through the Femba process, come through and channel through my body, because mina ngithwasile, and my body through impanzi yebungoma has the potential to be able to then be possessed by living spirits. And when I say living spirits, I mean amadlozi angakithi, because our ancestors are still alive. So people's ancestors are able to channel through the Femba process to give context on certain generational curses, certain generational debts, certain blockages and things that are outstanding in the path, which are blocking the individual or the family from reaching their soul purpose and their soul intent. Tozan Bokukush came to Mr. Terrari, the Fembist and the Femba. Yes, indeed. Zimbali says, I would ask you to please compare it to Ayukasa. I think the comparison to Ayukasa, Gogo, I will not do today, because that psychedelic Ayukasa, I feel, is a totally different topic on its own, because it's a psychedelic and you go on a trip. It's no different from the ibogaine route that you get. It's no different from iluru or midlandlovu, which have certain hallucinogenic psychedelic properties which allow for you to tap into a certain vibration, which then makes you go on what is called a trip. But you then pass and tether this third dimension and go into the fourth dimension. But that is something that you are doing. But as a Ukufemba, it is somebody else then perhaps maybe going on that trip, going to that other dimension, while you then have the view. You are then the viewer and you get to interact with all of those different entities. Tozani Nonge. Oh wow. Lebu K3 says, Toza Gogo, what role Toza Gogo does the Mguni spirit play when one fembas? Thank you, Gogo, for that question. Beautiful question. So in the first Gutopuma Mzawe, and as I'm saying, the Mzawe will do all of those details that I've covered around what Ukufemba really is around, right? And then when the Mzawe is finished, Ukufemba, Ukushanyela, Gutwairo, what will then happen is then the Mguni ancestor will come out. Umguni, angithi Mzawe uyafemba. Mguni yena uyaphengula. Mguni uyakhipha imfihlo, uyahlahluba. So the Mguni is a diviner. Mguni is umamemeza also. Mguni is also then the spokesperson. That's why we say insizwe yomnguni ayinamahloni. The Mguni ancestor would then come out. The Mguni ancestor would come out to contextualize the entire body of what was covered in the Femba process, and then be able to then move from problem stating to then being like, okay, so this is how we problem solve, because Ukufemba is around problem stating and then possible sort of solutions, and then the Mguni would then take the whole entire context of the Femba and weave it together to find a solution that is tailored specifically to you based on all of the different levels and of truths which have been uncovered through the Femba ritual, through the Mzawe Apuma. Mandilake says, Toza Gogo, do you Femba, and how much Yes, Gogo, I do, Femba. And if you'd like to know, please send a message on my WhatsApp. My number's on the bio. Tozan Bukoko. Tozan Nonge joining L, Toza Crisper Live, Can you see the Wabadimo, Tumzi, Ife. Normally for this Toza Goko, can the Femba process assist with identifying who's the giver of my gift and where I need to go to unlock those gifts? Toza Goko, as I was explaining, Ukufemba firstly is a general checkup. Ukufemba is also like a spring clean. Ukufemba is also a mediumship where then the person who is fembering is able to embody people's ancestors and embody the spirits and entities which also roam with that. So if we are saying that it's an embodied mediumship or channeling of your ancestors, it is possible for someone's ancestor to come up and then give direction, either exactly as you're asking, as to who they are and where they want you to go, or also to be able to then give you a direction as to, in order for that to be unlocked, what needs to be done is this, then your path will also then start to be cleared up towards a Gogo. Mashabela Dino says, yeah, Diabua Gogo, your knowledge is a gem towards a Gogo. Thank you. Nesisa says, Linda, does everyone have the Nguni ancestor to intervene? Towards so I'm trying to understand if you're asking for the person who is the fem best or for the fem B. Do you need to have a Nguni ancestor? But if you're asking Gutsi as me, as Gogo Khanyakude, if I'm going to be Femba, does that necessarily mean that I have a Nguni ancestor? Yes, it does, because Mawio Twasa Singuni Nesinzawe, because those two destinies are tied together. Those two sort of histories are tied together, and how they became tied together is that during the time of Mfekane, when then Bososhangani and Abomziligazi were forging their way through Mozambique, Labanye going all the way to Zimbabwe, what then happened is that they disrupted a lot of the people who lived around those great rivers that are around those places. Those people, Bebamanzawe, and in saying they interrupted them, there was intermarriage, there was certain promises which were not kept, there were certain debts that are outstanding. So the bloodlines of the Nguni and Zawe people, especially in southern Africa, are very, very meshed up. I mean, in Mpumalanga, we speak of having bandu that are Mabai, which is a combination of what would be Shangani, Pulana, and Mswati. But then going deeper into those Shangans are actually not Shangan, they're actually the Ndawe people who moved away but had assimilated that culture. So in our blood, when you have Idlos Lomguni, necessarily there will often always be Umdawe Wangagini or Mdawe that then comes as one of those that maybe have outstanding generational, debts with your family, or come back also as to honor an agreement or a partnership which was done by the ancestors that came before. Togoza Gogo. I saw there were two. Came to me, she says, is there any other water spirit that is able to perform this ritual? As I'm saying, Ukufemba is mediumship, Ukufemba is channeling, Ukufemba is divination. If we go into, sort of the naming what the skill sets or the actions actually mean behind what is done in the ritual. So there are many modalities or other ways where people would probably be able to achieve the very same aims at what Ukufemba is intended and purposed to do. And those would probably often have to also do with gifts of the water. Because one that I'm aware of is, for example, Wishe Jamalopo is very similar in a way to also is also similar to Ukufemba. But whereas in Huisa Malopo, whatever entities and ancestors, then Wona, they come out and they come out through Wena. And Malopo, there is a deep connection with the water as well. Towards a Gogo. At nominated says towards a Gogo. However, there's a possibility that the evoked spirit could be reluctant to speak. Towards a Gogo, yes. There could be many things, because when an ancestor is channeled through that mediumship, the ancestor will come back with the consciousness that they passed on with, and also then combined with how they have been treated in the family. So if Nina, your great grandfather, comes out and nobody has ever bothered to go visit his grave since he passed away, and he's come out because he's central to, you know, your issues, but he's not very forthcoming around what needs to be done, that would be understandable, because Hawaii, nobody has ever gone back to holler at the man. Nobody has ever done any sort of ceremonies to feed him energetically, because maspahla sibita magama abo, when we call their names, when we do these ritual offerings, we are feeding our ancestors on an energetic and an oral level, because in the spiritual realm, energy is more important than that which we find that is tangible here. So the consciousness in calling their names and them being alive in our memories feeds their ability to be able to speak and interact with us on a physical level. Audrey Busiso says, you changed my life and my family forever in gratitude. Oh, it was a Gogo. Oh, and I was thinking about you just the other day. Oh, wow. Lebuke, ngiyabonga for answering. Toza Gogo, it's a pleasure. Etnomalife, indeed, a beautiful question. Linz Mdungwa, Uti Toza Gogo, can one have a dialogue with your ancestor? Yes. So during the Femba, if let's say during the Femba processes, I'm saying it's a full body scan, and there's also an element of mediumship. So the mediumship is that not only will your ancestors come out, right? So when your ancestors come out and they are talking to you, it's like a conversation. You will speak within context of whatever narrative they're coming, and then contextualize it within your understanding. And if you don't understand, you'd express that. But also during Femba, for example, if I am your neighbor and, you know, I have bad blood with you, and I've been doing, you know, some midnight activities, doing some witchery on you, even then, your people, you know, also come out during Femba, living people, to then and then they reveal the things that they've been doing to take away your free will, not necessarily Google lawyer, but they reveal the manipulation that they've had in your life in order to take away your free will in the direction that they would have wanted it to go. Zimbali Kwela Oti Lamini Ati, Ukufemba is dangerous for the healer and can kill the healer. On the question of cost, it must be expensive, I think. You know, thank you for raising that up, because so many people will often be like, Gogo, oh no, ngifuna kutofemba. And they'll ask, Guti, how much is it? And then I'll tell them how much the Femba process is. And then they'll be like, whoa, donkey. And what's even worse is that there isn't even that thing of being like, oh no, thank you, Gogo. You know, I think this is too high. Munda vele, I disappear. And in my mind, I'm like, if only you knew. So thank you for sharing that. Mashabela Dineo, hi. K Mutumisi says, if dialogue is possible between the Fembi and whichever Lozi and the Fembi ask questions, can a Lozi withhold any response on purpose? Togoza, my Lodi are just like people. You can ask your mother a question or your father a question, and they can choose to not answer you, or they can tell you that it's none of your business. They can behave in whatever way that we as people react, because Lozis are people, and they still carry that essence and that whole manner of engagement as we have. Because I've noticed a lot of people think that once a Lozi pass on, they become some sort of other being. Nesisa Linda says, Toza Koko makes sense. Toza Sunset Grove says Kamakwini. Kamaku Dumisi says, is it possible to ask for a specific ancestor to come through? Like if you'd like your great-grandmother to come through, if they cannot, do you get a response that someone else will come through? Chokoza Koko. So one thing you need to understand about Ukufemba and Ubungoma is that and the ancestor you desire will not come up if they are not central in any way towards your healing. And when I say your healing, I mean because Ukufemba is around unlocking your soul purpose, your soul intention, and being able to find what is it that you've been called into this world to vibrate into, and where has there been a blockage, where has there been a shift? Is it in things which are current? Is it things in the lineage? And then finding a way to then come through with those with those interventions in order to then heal and to order then transform and go back into being in alignment with your soul purpose. So if your grandmother coming through and speaking to you is just a self-serving desire, they would not come through in Ukufemba, because the ancestral space is not a self-serving one. It's around serving that which is a need and vis-a-vis a want. Togoza. Zimuhle says, would you advise for a family that has been divided to then go through Ukufemba while trying to fix the mistakes of the past? Togoza Koko, yes, the family that Lenjalo from Ukufemba is beautiful because you don't just also femba individuals, you also femba homes, you also femba cars, personal items, important items. Because sometimes the home or the land where maybe you guys come from, there's been so many things that have happened in the past which carry negative memories. And even though the people may have moved past that energy which you are all connected to, let's say Nga Gogo or your grandfather's home or even your parents' home, and that whole space has never been cleansed, those energies will remain there and will attract then other entities which also vibrate on the same level, which would be on a level of trauma, on a level of darkness, to come into that space. So you would then femba a home like that when maybe there's been great strife in that family, in whatever way suffering could have happened that was experienced while living in that home, to be able to then also cleanse and sanctify that space as well. Tozan Bokoko. Mashabelo Dineo says, why is it possible for a person not to initiate Manlopo but Undawo Alimupedi on both maternal and paternal? Gogo, because today I'm only going to be answering questions specifically around Ukufemba, and I feel the question that you're asking is sort of outside of that, because why someone would then would not trust Malopo but would trust UMndawo. But to give you a simple answer, like the water is ancient. Even in the Bible, God didn't create the water. In the beginning there was water and darkness, and then God said, let there be light. That creation story says that when we go into African creation stories, we speak of the primordial source. When you the primeval waters, when you look at Kemetic sciences, when you go into the Ngoma creation story, we believe our ancestors live elwandle labangoma. UMndawo is a water spirit, so it means that it would be the most ancient and would also then, as part of a gifting, be more central sometimes than perhaps initiating more sitio sakogenu of Malopo, which is then localized only to those people. But whereas the understanding of the water and what the water means, like Sinzawe, is something that is universal. Tozani. Lindsay Mgenya says, Toza Gogo Nyatibongela, thank you for such a beautiful response. Mina, I'm sorted. Toza Gogo, it's a pleasure. Kemudumisi says, I'm not sure the cost also comes from the fact that there's an intense exchange and so many spirits in our conduit. Toza Gogo, and that is true, because Ukufemba, as in terms of a ritual, it's something that can take anything from maybe over an hour plus to sometimes a good 4 hours fembering a single person. I mean, this year thus far, the longest fember session I've had was around 4.5 hours. And within that, so many things just came out. There were the ancestors that came out, around 4 or 5 different ancestors of the person I was, of the fembi. There were certain then also people that were doing certain sort of dark magic and ritualistic magic. Many of them came out. There were also other dimensional beings or ilwane that were also attached on, that also came out. There was just a lot. So it does, as you're saying, it is a deeply energy consuming sort of ritual. Toza, the way you explain Toza Gogo, Mrs. SP Toza Gogo, please save this. I don't, definitely will. Zintle Zizi says, Toza, totally love how you explain Gogo. Toza, it's a pleasure. Mapule says, Toza Gogo, I went to Petlweni ukuphakamisa sithunywa, but I know I have amagedla as well. If I go to Femba, will my ancestors come out and speak for themselves? Mapule Maleti Toza, what if there is definitely an ancestral gift and you go to someone who's fembered, much like when you go and you divine, ukuyohlola, because ukufemba is also a form of divination on ukuhlola. If you come to me as Gogo Khanyakude and you've come to hlola, you take out, the offering, you sit, and then I start to hlola you or divine in whatever way I divine. If what has brought you to me is that you are not sleeping at night, and I'm telling you 100 trillion other things, but I'm not getting to the point of divining that what brings you here is that you can't sleep at night, then the issue then is around me as a practitioner. I am not able ukuhlola. So even around ukufemba, if what is necessary and what is blocking is for you to understand which ancestors are there so that you can align with your soul purpose, which is your spiritual calling, because ubitiwe wena bantu bagini, then the ancestors will come out, not necessarily the gift bearers that you're seeking, but there will be guidance that will come out, and something will be divined and made clear as to what can you do to better be able to connect. If it's a connecting issue, if it's an alignment issue, it will be around what do you need to be able to shift around so that you can align. And if it's then an understanding issue, it will be then expressed as to what is it that you need to be contextually understand in order to then be able to fulfill what you need to do. Towards a Gogo. At Kanye.sa_ says, I would like to know that as a healer, are you taught Ukufemba ephetweni, or is it part of your gifting? Towards a Gogo. So there's, as I was saying, as a generic, when I began this live, I spoke about Ukufemba just as a general process is like a spring cleaning, and a cleaning on a energetic level, on an oral level, on a spiritual level, on a mental level, on an emotive level, and on a physical level as well, on all of those parts of all of those different bodies we have, just cleaning it out, much like you'd be spring cleaning your home. So ephetweni, everyone lothwasa sinzawe is taught to be able to facilitate that tier. If that had to be like a pillar, that would be one of the pillars of Ukufemba, that every single person who has gone ephetweni, if they are then initiating unumzawe, should be able to go home and then be able to use Ukufemba then as that. When we go then into the part of it being a gifting that you have been gifted by your ancestors, that then would be where you then start to be able to channel, and the mediumship, the ability to tap in and channel other people's ancestors and for them to speak through you and to contextualize themselves. That is a sign of this is a gift, and this is what it is that we have been gifted into. The ability then also to, during then that Femba process, if there are certain sort of illnesses which have not been able to be healed, even nangemiti, that through that process you are able to then perform a sacred form of alchemy, where through you opening up the gates to the other side, or elwandle labangoma, the primordial source, where all the creational force is, that you bring that in, and as Atanyela Mzawe is able to then reset your space, so that whatever then is healing, your body will then receive healing if it's already being called to go to the other side. Tozan Goku. Penny Zungu, definitely Gogo, I will save this live for you. Matutu says, is it advisable to Femba boyfriend and girlfriend who are in a process of getting married? Yes. Oh, I love that question. Yes. Ukufemba is so great. When you're going to be doing anything monumental, you're about to go and twasa, or you Femba, check in with all of those things. You're about to move into a new home, or there's something that's going to need a gathering and a coming together, like marriage, as you're saying. Yes, definitely go and Femba, so that you can see what's good. Ukufemba is a very critical ritual, but I guess because it's not so mainstream, we think of it as something that is only done in special cases. Kanzi cha, zimuhle siyabonga Gogo Mfundiso, ukhule Thoza Gogo, it's a pleasure. Dao 9110 says, Thoza Gogo, I have pins and needles, home. I went for scans, but dololo, what can be the cause? Dao nenskichilo hori, today ribuaka Ukufemba. Our topic is Ukufemba, and it seems I didn't pin the topic, guys. You as Kisini, we're not doing a Q&A. If you want to find out, you can take Nomoro Yaka, it's on my bio, and you'll send me a message on WhatsApp, and then we can go into a consultation. Mutumisi, you always explain so clearly. Thoza Gogo, nyabonga. Ndobza D says, Thoza Gogo, does Ukufemba not have negative results for the clients in regard to the spirits that came forth? As I was explaining, if Ukufemba is like spring cleaning, we could all do with being cleaned on all the different parts of our bodies. If Ukufemba then is also then a check up, and like going through all the tests like MRI, blood work, blood sugar, all of that, just general annual checkup, and also specialized checkup to be able to see if there could be anything which is hidden that needs to be addressed, then there's no way Ukufemba can be negative. Because if you find out that there's something that you didn't know about, even though it may cause you pain or strife, at least you will know, and then you will also be given a way to then deal with it going forward. Ukufemba is a purifier. It's supposed to be something yakubasisa itindlela. That's why it's done by the Mzawe, the water spirit, because water is a purifier, water is a cleanser, water is a reconciler, and those are also all the intentions that Ukufemba seeks to also meet. Anna Ramano says, Thoza Gogo, during the ritual, does the Fembi only hear the voice, or can they see the person? So if, let's say, someone comes out, the way they speak, their mannerisms, their demeanor, as the Fembi then is embodying or channeling that person, you will be able to identify. Sometimes it will be, as you're saying, through the physical demeanor. Sometimes it will be through the way they voice. Sometimes it will be just in the way that the energy, you will just have a sense of it. Toza. Toza and Wokok, I'm definitely saving this. Definitely saving this. Mrs. SP says, so is there cleansing after Ukufemba? So Maufemba, and it's before Skala Kufemba, Guba, there's Libaso, which is a certain incense which is burnt. There's certain meaties that you're consecrated with. And the consecrated is Guqinisa. You understand that go in your body. The space, the grass mat where you're at is also consecrated with certain meaty. Maseketziwa logo Kufemba logo. there is then also then an incense or ilbaso that is also then burnt to be able to then transmute and transform all of that. And that's why specifically kusetshenziswa ilbaso, because fire is a transformative energy. When you use kushiswa lelo libaso, whatever then was there lo kufuna ukuthi kube sekuyatransforma, like how fire is transformative through using of lelo libaso, is then done for that ritual. But if there are specific things which have come out that are important, whether it's rituals of alignment, rituals of connection, rituals of road opening where there are blockages that have been discussed and maybe then recommended by umguni, then there would then be a need to follow those prescriptions, because Ukufemba is also a way to find out what is prescribed for you specifically and not what is generically done. Because oftentimes when you come and you bula, so we will channel what is the problem, we will divine what needs to be done, but it will often be in specific, it will often be a sort of a generic going to a GP, whereas going to Ukufemba is going to a specialist. Towards Gogo. Anna says, what if people don't know, it's people I don't know, how would I be able to identify? Would they mention their name? Towards Gogo, and I can't, there is no structured guti, this must happen, then this will happen, because what I don't want to do also is to create a sort of a theoretical understanding, because this live is not so that we can, if we could then maybe say we're going to write a book on Ukufemba Theory 101, because we need to understand that spirit does as spirit will. So for some people, when they femba, the people will say their names. For other people, the people will not say their names. It's all different, and it's within the context of what is happening then. Towards Gogo. Dao says, can the guides tell what they want if one is about to go for initiation? If you're meaning through the Femba process, yes, definitely there could be specifics that could come up through the Femba process. And also, as I'm saying, because it is a spring cleaning and our ancestors like to come to us when we are still in a pure space, then you would find that you would then get clearer messages coming from there. I see Linz Mtunga, you just captivate me. It's true, I can't get enough of the info you share. Toza Gogo, it's an absolute pleasure. Vuya Katasi says, Toza Gogo, can Femba help my mom find out who her father was? My grandmother never revealed this information to her before she died. Togoza, yes, that is also something that Ukufemba does. It's a way to reconnect us with our broken sort of homes where we come from and our broken lineages, where those then that came before may then come through and tell us, Guti, Tsine, we come from this place. Come, go to that place and go and meet us there. You'll find Bandbagin, and maybe you go there and you find somebody who looks exactly like you. And maybe in the Femba process, they wouldn't have said their surname, but having heeded the direction to go there and finding a person who looks like them, then manithi alanzela uthole ukuthi utholile mndeni wakho. Towards Gogo. At ne Mpomesh Togoza. Nesisa Linda, during Ukufemba, does the guide tell you what steps they want you to take if you have to initiate or not, what kind of gift it is? Maybe you said it already. Towards Gogo, if they deem it necessary for you to know, then that would be revealed to you during Ukufemba Gogo. Towards yes. Somebody Matutu asked, do I need to partner and alert my people before coming to you for Ukufemba? Yes, funeke uphahle, funeke ubike ubatshele bakini ukuthi I'm going to go Femba, ngiyacela ukuthi nibe nikhona, ngiyacela ukuthi nihambeni nami, ngiyacela ukuthi kuvuleke khanye, and can we reach what it is that we have intended. Anna says, understood, thank you. Ngiyatibongela nami Gogo. Amani Dube says, I simply love you. I love you too. Towards Gogo at Kosazane Yokoba Unemalife. I'm also strong. Ukufemba, can you ask problems happening from both maternal during Ukufemba? Can you? Towards yes. As I'm saying, it's a conversation. So, Uma Puma, someone that comes from your paternal side, you will address the issues that then are those that are relevant to the paternal. And if somebody comes out from your maternal side, so with every single thing that evokes out as a generic, whatever comes out during the Femba ritual, you must engage with it within the context from where it is birthed. Dineo Faito says, sorry, I joined live late, come from work. Is Femba like consulting? Toza Koko, basically what I explained to everyone earlier on is that Uguhlola through divining through the bones would be sort of like going to a GP, whereas Ukufemba would be like going to a specialist. So you can go to a GP and they can test for whatever it is within what their competencies are. But when they see that when they've reached a ceiling, they will recommend that you go to a specialist who can do more detailed sort of tests, where it would be the introduction maybe of MRI scans, if it's like suspicions of tumors, x-rays, and don't, because then it's around a certain specialized thing. So that is the difference between Ukufemba and Negupengula. Toza. Yeah. I see there are no more questions, and I feel we've covered quite a lot, and we've been on for an hour. So ngicabanga ukuthi for namuhla bogogo nabomkhulu, if there are no more questions lingering around Ukufemba, will save the life for everyone, so that into khona ukuthi nibe seniyagoa back into it. And maybe for if there are any other questions, I'll just send out a thing where you could DM me, and then next time when I do the live, I'll come into the live, perhaps then with all of those questions then, and just interact with those questions. Zimuhle says, Ukufemba kuyalihlambulula idlozi gogo. Towards yes, Ukufemba kuyalihlambulula idlozi. Because sometimes, for example, let's speak about in the Twasa journey. Kuba nemathwasana ukuthi uyangena and they have the gift, they have the calling, but the idlozi doesn't come out. So you would often then recommend Ukufemba so that they can purify, because as I was explaining, UMndawo is a water spirit. Water is a cleanser, water is a purifier, water is a connector, water is a reconciler. Water is an alchemist. It's transformative, it's transcendent, in how it shapeshifts into many forms, and is always just ever present in everything's creational process. Everything is in creation or in a sort of reliance with water in terms of it living, in terms of living beings. So when you then femba that twasa, you are then purifying them with all of that sacred alchemy and sacred understanding of using the ndawe and the gift of the water, the creational force, which is water. And then often then you'll find ukuthi then leli twasa lidlula likhona ukuthi libe seliyahlambuluka liphume likhulume towards Gogo. Towards Gogo, can the session be in English? I've been speaking English for most of the time, and where I do speak other languages, I do also then, try and go back into English. But one thing that I will also say is that as African people, we need to move away from using English as a crutch as to what connects us, when our own, indigenous, our own mother tongues then seem to be a barrier to entry. This perhaps is a call and an invitation for all of us to also then learn each other's languages, so we can better be able to understand the knowledge. Because some things really, I'm very good with English. I'm not just English language. I love language. But in the understanding of different languages, I know that there's certain things which can only be properly unpacked or contextualized using Lilimu la Sesotho. Nesisa Linda says, thank you so much, Gogo. Thank you, Gogo. Namnyatibongela. Penny Zungu says, thank you, Gogo. This is so beautiful. Your knowledge is so amazing. Thank you. Now only now do I see the ritual. Toza Koko, the Femba ritual won't be in English. It will be in the languages of those that you walk with, or the energies that you walk with. So it will always be in a language that you'll understand. Toza and Bokoko. And just like that, Nyatibongela, let me just pin this. No, but there's no need to pin this. Goodbye.